Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
Welcome back.
MisFitNation. MisFitNation.
We are a show founded by veterans and hosted by veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on, share some of your tips with the audience to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. Reach out, we will get you on. If you are feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle, or are embarrassed to share that with them, please dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make it a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisFitNation. That's @the_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell. This will keep you up to date with all of our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Electrocast Media and About Face Radio. This will keep you up, tuned into us, and learn more about our great guests.
Tonight we have a great one. A phenomenal guest. She's a neurobiological breakthrough specialist, psychedelic breakthrough complex trauma and addiction expert, reshaping the psychiatric and mental health fields. Her mission is to be part of a healing global complex trauma, ending world hunger, oppression, inequality, war, and the climate crisis by facilitating neurobiological breakthroughs for global leaders, artists, influencers, and innovators, bring them to a state of optimization, tapped in to creative genius and a state of self-love, presence, and flow. Oh, and don't forget, you can reach us out on the show tonight at 202-813-9379, and be sure to listen to us on About Face Radio. So without further ado, let's welcome Andrea Hanson to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Andrea.
Hi, Rich. It's so good to be here with you today.
It's awesome to have you here. I'm glad you agreed to come on and be on the live show and vice the pre-recorded one. This is an important topic for many of our listeners because a lot of our listeners are veterans and they suffer through PTSD and the mental health crisis that is associated with that. So it'd be great to have you on here. I knew it'd be great to have you on here and share your knowledge with our show and our audience to help them maybe put some more stuff in their toolbox to help them have a better day in the days ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I love sharing about and really spreading the message about complex PTSD and PTSD. There's been so much shame around it. And I know that a lot of veterans feel like it's, a weakness or that they've done something wrong or they're just not made out of the right stuff, essentially, if they come back and they're still struggling with trauma. And that's just absolutely not the case. So I'm so happy to be here to share this message.
Awesome. And Andrea, if you don't mind, tell us a little more about yourself. I know I just gave like a pretty quick blurb about you there. If you want to give us a little more about you from as far back as you want to go to how we got to where we are now, that'd be awesome.
How I got to where I am, it's a mix of personal and professional. I, as a person who had some complex trauma throughout life, I had sought a lot of mental health care in my, adolescence as well as in my early adulthood. And I found that what I was experiencing from therapists was coming up short. A lot of it was mindset based. People are typically pretty familiar with CBT or DBT if you've been to therapy, where it's like, well, let's change your thoughts, let's change your behaviors, and then everything will change. And I found that after a while, that felt really easy and really natural to be able to change my thoughts and change my behaviors. But it felt like there was something deeper down that was not being managed, that wasn't being paid attention to. And when I tried to bring it up in therapy or with psychiatrists, there was a lot of like, oh no, let's not worry about that. That's fine. And so I thought maybe there were all kinds of different things going on, but I wasn't quite sure. And then on the professional end, as I went through graduate school, so I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor. So that's the master's level of psychotherapist. As I went through graduate school, a lot of what we were taught was also these theories around using the uppermost part of our brain, which is all based on our thoughts. And then after graduate school, I started working with people who had addictions. And I realized very quickly that all these people with addictions had trauma. So there was something else that was causing these behaviors, that was causing these symptoms that we were then labeling as addiction. So I started looking more into it and I started going to a lot of trainings and really narrowed in on the neurobiological effects of complex trauma, and everything clicked for me. It just felt very true of, okay, I finally put a finger on that when we experience complex trauma, throughout our lives, throughout development, or as adults, and during things like combat, it changes our biology. It changes the way that our brain is structured, and that then causes these symptoms that thinking differently doesn't do anything for.
That's a good journey right there, especially having the experience of yourself to learn from your own trauma to now help others. And I think
Mhm.
that's what makes a lot of therapists or psychiatrists or anyone in this field, mental health field, have that better toolbox because they've been there or they've been through something and they know something that actually worked for them and will work for others. Because as we know, not everything is one size fits all in the mental health world.
Yeah.
Because what might work for you might not work for me, but it's always good to know what else is out there.
Yeah, yes, absolutely is. And then and everywhere that you go is going to be different, and every therapist that you see is going to be different. And that it's easy to see one or two and get really disheartened. And I myself have done that as well, gone to see a couple. I'm like, oh my gosh, there must be something just horrifically wrong with me that none of these professionals know how to help me. But it really comes down to just looking and looking and looking until you find that right fit of that person who seems to really get you. And that doesn't mean that they're also a veteran or also the same gender or also the same religion. It it's totally, arbitrary, all of that stuff. It just matters. Can they link to you soul to soul? Can they pull out the techniques that will really work for you specifically?
Right. It's kind of like when you go to buy a car. You're not going to buy a car just because everyone has that car, that red shiny
Yeah.
car. You want the car that fits you, the one that you get in there and you feel good. So, like for me, it took probably one, two, three, four trips to the VA and their mental health facilities before I walked out. Actually, I escorted out, and then I wound up with a civilian practitioner, and he helped me completely and turned me around, turned me from just woe is me to let's go forward. And I thank him every day for everything he did for me. And I tell people that worked for me. It might not work for you,
Yeah.
but there's others out there who are smart and know this stuff. And that's not me. I just know what worked for me.
Yeah. Yes, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you did that, shopping around and finding someone who worked for you. And I know there's trust and mistrust within the VA. Some soldiers trust the VA more, some distrust the VA. And there's just so many resources out there. There's therapists at different price points, and just keep looking, don't give up.
Exactly. Just don't just go to the Dollar General and think that's where you have to stay. You can spread your wings a little bit and you'll get the help you need. And there's someone
Yeah.
out there. So tell us a little more about what you do to help someone that's going through trauma. And like you said, it's not just veterans; it's everyone. Everyone in the world has some kind of trauma that they've been experienced to, or on themselves, or seen, or whatever.
Yep. Or generationally. I've worked with multiple people who had grandpas who were in the military, and that trickles down through the way that it changed their grandpa, fundamentally then changed the way that their parent was raised, and all the way down. So yes, everybody has trauma at this point. How I help is I blend a lot of different techniques together that are all based in the lower brain and the body. So we do breath work. There's a specific kind of yoga that is really amazing for building up the mind-body connection. It's called TCTSY yoga. I recommend anybody look it up. There's some videos on YouTube that some clinicians have put together. Really great type of yoga. So I do that with clients. I do somatic processing, EMDR, IFS, a lot of sometimes blending in art and play, just anything that will light up the most of the brain as possible, and especially those lower regions in the body. And then I also work with psychedelics in assistance with those. And psychedelics are booming right now. There's a lot of interest in psychedelics, which I think is really great. And I think it comes along with a caveat that they make an incredible catalyst to a larger healing experience, as opposed to just being healing in and of themselves. And some people do experience healing from psychedelics on their own, but for the most part, there's so much that goes into creating the right environment. So have you heard of MAPS, Rich?
No, I have not.
MAPS is really cool. They've actually been doing a lot of research for about 3 decades now on using MDMA for PTSD. And they've done a lot of research with veterans who have complex trauma or trauma, and they have found really great results within a protocol. So within the MAPS protocol, how they use MDMA, and it's pure MDMA made by a pharmacist, not just ecstasy that you pick up off the streets. Don't do that.
That
That
stuff
could
looks
have
up.
right, exactly. That stuff often has a lot of, meth, cocaine, all kinds of other stuff in it. But they use pure MDMA from the pharmacy, and they have the client meet with the therapist, with the facilitators, multiple times prior to the first dose. And then when they do that first dose, the facilitators are with them for the full time, and it's typically around six-ish hours that they work through just all of this trauma with the assistance of the MDMA. And how the MDMA helps is that it's often described like a trapdoor into the basement, and the basement has all this big scary stuff that we don't want to face. So we constantly block, whether it's dissociating or changing the topic or laughter or getting really intellectual and logicking our way out of it. We block ourselves in one way or another from actually getting down there and working through what we need to work through. So what the psychedelics do, and specifically in these studies, the MDMA does, is opens that trap door and makes everything feel less intense. So it's less scary. So you and the facilitators can go into that space together and work through everything. And it's a very empowering experience where the client gets to acknowledge that they have always had everything that they needed within themselves to move through that trauma. And it just took, taking a couple barriers out of the way in order to ignite that inner healer and create space to be able to then move through that trauma with less fear. It's a really, really beautiful thing to be a part of.
Wow, it sounds amazing, and I know I don't know if you've seen the show SEAL Team, but the lead actor on that he's the leader of the SEAL team, and he has problems with TBI, so he does psychotherapy, psychedelic therapy, but like off the books, he goes away and does it, and comes back a different person, and everyone thinks, oh, it's just Hollywood, but the way you just explained is almost exactly what he did in the show. It was kind of like you were saying. I was like, well, I'm watching like episode 8 here. This is crazy.
No, that's really interesting. It really is. It really is. And there's a lot of evidence that also shows that psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, essentially, they have a lot of those really incredible qualities as well, where you can facilitate really amazing healing. So I work with those I'll go to states where it's legal, or countries where it's legal, and have a weekend where I'll work with a couple different people one-on-one with the psychedelic assisted with mushrooms. And then ketamine is also a really interesting psychedelic as well. And that one as well, a lot of clinics have been offering ketamine assisted therapy, but they just offer the ketamine as a standalone treatment for the
Yep.
most part. And that, from everything that I've seen so far and talking to clients and also knowing about the research, going to a ketamine clinic for standalone treatment can be helpful, especially at first, or it can be really, really scary because there's no preparation, there's no intention setting. And it also will lead to building a tolerance over time. So sometimes it feels like a really great relief right up front, but then over time it's like, oh, this isn't really helping anymore. So with ketamine, but that's the most widely available. If anyone listening is interested in looking at ketamine therapy, I would definitely look for a therapist who does the whole process with you. So for me with my clients, I use the MAPS protocol regardless. So there's always going to be preparation sessions where we get you ready, we prepare you, and it's not just preparing mentally like a checklist, it's starting the neurobiological change process. So we start the processing, we start the breath work, the body work, all of that stuff, so that your body and mind are on a trajectory for healing. And then the day of, we'll typically do about an hour of therapeutics before the doctor comes in or before we administer the dose of the ketamine, which lasts then about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on the person. And then right after that, the ketamine makes your brain super plastic. So it's really malleable at that point. And whatever therapy you do coming out of therapy, or whatever's happening as you come out of ketamine, is going to stick in your brain much harder than if you didn't have the ketamine in there. So that's a really golden opportunity to dive into some EMDR, some of the IFS work. A lot of people have heard of EMDR, especially with trauma, but I'll just explain a little bit. That's where you have the bilateral stimulation. So you might have a light flashing back and forth in front of your eyes, or your therapist might tap on your knees or something like that. That would be EMDR. So that's a really great time to dive into that. And then there's integration sessions afterwards. So if you're looking at ketamine for your PTSD, make sure to look for a therapist that's doing the full protocol as opposed to just giving you ketamine and sending you home.
And not having any supervision, that's probably not a good thing anyway.
No, it's not.
It was EMDR that actually helped me out the most, and sitting with the doc and doing that, and we did the tapping thing. I would always just close my eyes and try to escape back to that point in time and walk him or walk myself, I guess, through it and relive the whole thing again. And that helped me out tremendously. I didn't have to go any further than EMDR, but I know there's others that really need that extra boost or extra, I guess, push to make them better. And I think that's what you're talking about here, and that'll help a lot of my brothers and sisters and a lot of everyone out there. Even people had trauma just from the last 2+ years of chaos that we've had due to the world and the way it is right now, and
Yeah.
different people react to things differently. And what may seem like nothing to me or you may be insanity to someone else, and their head might be just spinning out. So it might need
Oh,
be
yeah.
the person that needs that help.
Yes, definitely. It's a really incredible new place that we're in, and it's not really new because it was around. There was a lot of research being done around psychedelics with PTSD and trauma in the 60s and 70s, and then it got shut down along with the entire war on drugs. But companies like, or organizations like MAPS, have been continuing that research and working towards FDA approval. So it's a pretty exciting frontier that we're on, and I would definitely recommend, just looking into it and being open to the idea of it. There's lots of horror stories out there of people, going into the woods or going to raves and doing psychedelics, and it gave them, really bad experiences, and that's valid. That can happen. And it is just, it just deepens the experience that you're in. In my experience with clients when I'm working with them overall, with any psychedelic that we're using, they experience a very deep and profound feeling of love and support and connection to themselves, to their family, even to their ancestors, even ancestors that they never think about,
Right.
and to the earth, and to this kind of just deeper sense of stability. So the setting, the preparation, all of that stuff is really important to be able to create that really moving experience.
And in a safe place too, so that kind of helps having like someone like yourself guide them through it, and not
Mm-hmm.
just guy like we were talking earlier about the MDMA on the corner or in the club. You don't want the guy in the corner. Hey, you just take this. You can go dance down the street with this. This is
Yeah, don't do
great.
that.
You go get some lights and dance around with that. That'd be amazing.
Right. I mean, even if it is good, like that's not, if it is a great experience, the other concern is that it will turn into an addiction.
Right.
And there's a lot of talk out there of like, oh, these certain things aren't addictive. Everything can be addictive, right? Food, exercise, sex, relationships, video games, anything can be addictive. If it's that one thing that gave you relief for just a moment from whatever hell you've been living in, yeah, that's going to be addictive. So it definitely needs to happen intentionally with a very specific purpose, as opposed to a way to just escape for a moment.
Definitely. And you brought up addiction, and like you said, if someone's addicted to, say, drugs or alcohol, they might quit that, but then they'll wind up addicted to something to replace that. So it's either going to be exercise, or it's going to be food, or it's going to be something else to keep their mind off of A and stay with B, or wind up at C. So you just keep doing a cycle of addiction as you go down, but you might not think
Yeah.
they're harmful addictions, but until you're spending $8 million on a video game that you don't even like to play, but you're doing it to keep your mind off of something else.
Exactly. It's really just addiction is just kind of the opposite of wholeness. Yeah, opposite of being grounded and just being in yourself and moving in a trajectory that you actually want. It's an absence of being aligned with your sense of meaning and purpose, right? And trauma really sets the brain up for addiction. They live in the same region of the brain. So those who have gone through trauma are highly susceptible to do that addiction hopping. And it's so sad, it's so devastating that so many people of all genders who have served our country and put themselves out on the line for all of us to have the lives that we have are now suffering with even diseases that are deemed illegal, right? Like substance abuse, substance addictions to illegal substances. You have a veteran who, because they have trauma, then fell into an addiction and then is in and out of the system for however long it takes. And it's really upsetting to think about. I think that's it's so vitally important to understand how trauma plays into addiction, and to be able to work on that underlying trauma as well as addiction recovery, to be able to actually reach that state of wellness.
Right, and you brought up a good point there. The cycle that the veterans are going through, where either they wind up homeless and then in doing something illegal to try to stay afloat, basically, and
Yeah.
they wind up in the system, and it's very hard to get back out of that system unless there's a. Most of the areas now have what they call a veterans court, and they'll give you that one strike. They'll let you go through that veterans court and get through that and get the help you need and graduate. But if you do it again, they're not going to be as lenient on you.
Yeah.
They're going to put you right back in, and you're going to do time. And it's hard to recover from any time. Anyone doing time, it's hard to recover from.
Oh yeah.
No matter what you've done, it's hard to come back out and have a safe face and do everything and look at people in the eyes and say, "I'm a human. I'm not a felon. I'm a human."
Yeah.
And it's hard to recover from that, no matter who you are. So that cycle it's crippling, I like to call it.
Yeah, it really is, especially if you're on your own, if you've been alienated for whatever reason, and then you get a felony, then you have to live in felon-friendly apartments, have a felon-friendly job, and you're surrounded by these other people who are trapped in the same cycle, and it's really difficult. So if that is, if you are listening and you are going through that, if you've been given that one chance to get stuff together, just remember that if you really want that deep healing that's really required to be able to move forward and get yourself out of these self-sabotaging cycles, it is really important to have therapy that focuses on the lower brain. That upper brain where we're thinking, okay, these are my goals, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. All of that stuff is really great, but if the lower brain can't support it, it's like it's like stacking cards, right? If the bottom isn't there, if you knock that out, all of the rest is going to crumble. And it's great to have the top of those cards. It's an important part of that pyramid, but you absolutely have to focus on that complex trauma and move through that in a really meaningful way. And that doesn't mean rehashing through it. You don't have to talk about the details of your trauma. In fact, a lot of more recent research is showing that rehashing your trauma over and over again, talking about the details of your trauma, sometimes makes it worse. It doesn't always help. So it can be more focused on, how is your body feeling when you think about a certain scenario? What comes up, and process it through that feeling, or even the negative core beliefs of, I wasn't good enough in this situation, or now I'm unlovable because of what I went through, or maybe I'm too weak. Whatever it is that comes up, those are the things that can be processed through using somatics, using the EMDR, IFS, all of that, and even psychedelic assistance to help that lower stack in the cards, those lower, the base, the foundation, actually be able to hold up the top to provide that life that you are needing to move forward, so that you can, just be who you want to be and not be trapped.
And kind of just live happily instead of worrying about everything in the crowd space in your head. Kind of
Exactly.
breathe, like you're talking about breathing exercise. Be able to breathe when you walk in, and sit in your house, and actually be willing to walk outside and not just stay in your house and be afraid of seeing other humans. Because a
Mhm.
lot of people are becoming shut in because they don't want to look at other people because they're ashamed of what has become of them or what happened to them, like we said earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said you travel to do some of this treatment. What's the most exotic country you've gone to help somebody?
Most exotic country. Um, just Europe so far. Nowhere super exotic.
Europe.
I'm gonna have to add to that list.
Yeah. So no Far East stuff yet. Okay.
Nope. Nope, not yet. It really comes down to, typically there's a couple people in an area will reach out to me, and then we'll plan at that point. Like, oh, okay, well, I've had a couple people reach out, so I get a hold of all of them, and we figure out where to go from there.
That's awesome. And is
Yeah.
there any time that you take a client to maybe in a state where it's not legal, and you fly with them somewhere where it is and treat them there?
I've never flown with a client, but we have met
Yeah,
in a state.
that's
Yeah.
kind of what I meant. I mean, you like sat in first class together.
And
Chatted.
that would be nice. Hasn't happened yet.
It'd be different.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be.
So I'm sure you get a lot of your clients via online, especially in
Mhm.
this day and age when it's so easy to reach out and touch someone online.
Yeah.
What's the best way to reach out and touch and get in contact with you to either use you as a doctor or just to chat with you or have you on their show, someone else's show?
My website is just my name, Andrea Hanson with an on.net. From there, you can find all my socials, or you can get on my waiting list. When you get on my waiting list, I do contact you relatively soon, just to see. I don't want to waste anyone's time. So we look at, are you going to be a good fit when you do come around, or is it better to get on somebody else's waiting list, or seek somebody else's help? So getting on that wait list is the best way to, if you want to work with me as a facilitator. If you want me to have a chat with you like I'm having with Rich right now, and contacting me through my Facebook page or Instagram is going to be best.
And those are under your same, just your name as well.
Yeah, they're on my website. The little tags,
Icons. Yeah.
yeah, those icons. Mhm.
As long as they work, they're great.
Right? Yeah. And if they don't work, it's just at Andrea Hanson Psych on both Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. I haven't posted anything on TikTok, but if you want to follow me preemptively, feel
Probably get
free.
a lot of followers on TikTok just talking about psychedelics. So
Yeah, probably.
just don't add anything about health involved. Just say psychedelic, and
Just psychedelic.
if you just say that,
Yeah,
you'll wind up with thousands and thousands of followers.
I'd imagine. I haven't tried that.
I'm sure it'll work, and if
If
it
I
does,
if I do, I'll tag you.
thank you. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea, thank you for taking the time and agreeing to come to the live portion. And this will be out again on the pre-records as well. And thank you again for taking this time to be with us.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. It's really great what you're doing here for our veterans.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com to catch up on all of our episodes and also to get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are